paper, first of all, and I'm a graphic artist and painter. I really love surrealism and part of surrealism, that's why it's easy for me to do it in sand, but at the same time, things from life, the stories of life, are also for sand. So what I do, I'm telling the stories, just not using the language, using the universal language of images. And the most important thing for sand art, despite telling story, is to transform one image into another. So it's constant transforming.
I was going to say, what skills you have to be able to do the sand art well, because it's not something that people see very often. And so it may look easy to the naked eye, but there's a lot more behind the scenes, I imagine, that you have to think about. So yeah, what are the things you have to use, the skills you have to use to make it look seamless?
The skills you have to use for sand art, I think just being yourself, first of all, not even being an artist. But of course, you must draw, you must be a good artist, a good painter, but first of all, you must tell stories. I'm the person who loves stories myself, and I'm the person who has two children, and I'm constantly telling stories. So, always telling something, like from my life, from my granny's life, from films. So I'm just very skilled on stories. So I think you must be skilled on stories.
Yes. And speaking of which, your personal history, can you talk about where you're from and how that maybe has influenced the type of art that you make and your type of expression?
I'm from a very little city called Eupatoria. It's on the coast of the Black Sea. It's very, very tiny, but very inspiring. The city where I grew up, I was sketching all the time, the old buildings, the new buildings, and it was a very quiet life near sea. And all of a sudden, my husband proposed me to start creating something with sand when I was 21. And of course I refused. So he wasn't my husband then. So he invited me to be an artist in his magazine. He was like editor. And for me it was a big honor because I was finishing university and being a student and being an artist in a magazine is a big honor. And I never remembered about his proposal of trying some sand animation in my life until he married me. And we had a kid. Of course we forgot about sand and we started our own magazine. We loved this very much and we were very proud of it because we were like a new couple, a young couple with a little kid and making our own business, which is a good magazine bilingual. And I was making all artistic things there, and I was so happy. But suddenly in 2008, the world financial crisis destroyed it because it was very private, very small, and I had a depression. And my husband was looking at me dying on the sofa. I was very, very, very sad. And he said something new. He brought a bag of sand, threw it on the table, and said, "This is your new magazine. This is your new life. You must teach this, study this." And my first son was 1 year old, so the day I was standard regular mother with all of her duties, and at night, since like from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m., I was an artist in a very little room. I needed darkness, so it was night, and the room was very tiny with my first table. And I never thought I can just bring it somewhere outside this tiny room. I just was very happy to listen to music, to put this music into my sand. And suddenly my husband secretly signed me up on Ukraine's Got Talent. The first very season, nobody knew what Ukraine's Got Talent is. And in 6 months I won. So when I started participating, I was only 2 months practicing sand animation. I never stepped on any stage in my life. And then in 10 years I'm performing all over the world for kings, for queens, for royalty, for presidents. And last year I was in top 3 of America's Got Talent champions and British Got Talent champions and Golden Buzzer twice. I never thought this can ever happen to me. So I'm still this little girl from this little city.
Yeah, there is something when I watch your performance. There's something special about the medium of sand that I think permeates your psyche, your emotional self, and you don't expect it.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about the sand that really affects people?
The sand, well, it's magic. I think you must be pretty crazy to do this. I sometimes step to the table, take the sand. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's just going to be born together with your thoughts. Sometimes we just look in a spectator as well as all other spectators. What we do, and very often we perform with symphony orchestras, for example, or live musicians. It's very often an improvisation. I start, but I never know what is going to happen. It's very interesting. I like this job.